Chapter 31. There is another evil of the day, which I would were sufficient for it. For by eating and drinking we repair the daily decays of our body, until thou destroy both body and meat, when thou shalt slay my emptiness with a wonderful fullness, and clothe this incorruptible with an eternal incorruption. But now the necessity is sweet unto me, against which sweetness I fight, that I be not taken captive, and carry on a daily war by fastings, often bringing my body into subjection, and my pains are removed by pleasure. For hunger and thirst are in a manner pains. They burn and kill like a fever, unless the medicine of nourishments come to our aid. Which since it is at hand through the consolations of thy gifts, with which the land, and water, and air serve our weakness, our calamity is termed gratification. This hast thou taught me, that I should set myself to take food as physic. But while I am passing from the discomfort of emptiness into the content of replenishing, in the very passage the snare of concupiscence besets me. For that passing is pleasure, nor is there any other way to pass thither, whither we needs must pass. And health being the cause of eating and drinking, there joineth itself as an attendant a dangerous pleasure, which mostly endeavours to go before it, so that I may for her sake do what I say I do, or wish to do, for health's sake. Nor have each the same measure, for what is enough for health is too little for pleasure, and oft it is uncertain, whether it be the necessary care of the body which is yet asking for sustenance, or whether a voluptuous deceivableness of greediness is proffering its services. In this uncertainty the unhappy soul rejoiceth, and therein prepares an excuse to shield itself, glad that it appeareth not what sufficeth for the moderation of health, that under the cloak of health it may disguise the matter of gratification. These temptations I daily endeavour to resist, and I call upon thy right hand, and to thee do I refer my perplexities, because I have as yet no settled counsel herein. I hear the voice of my God commanding, Let not your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness. Drunkenness is far from me. Thou wilt have mercy that it come not near me. But full feeding sometimes creepeth upon thy servant. Thou wilt have mercy, that it may be far from me. For no one can be continent unless thou give it. Many things thou givest us, praying for them, and what good soever we have received before we prayed, from thee we received it. Yea, to the end we might afterwards know this, did we before receive it. Drunkard was I never, but drunkards have I known made sober by thee. From thee then it was, that they who never were such should not be so, as from thee it was, that they who have been should not ever so be, and from thee it was, that both might know from whom it was. I heard another voice of thine, Go not after thy lusts, and from thy pleasure turn away. Yea, by thy favour have I heard that which I have much loved. Neither if we eat shall we be abound, neither if we eat shall we lack. Which is to say, neither shall the one make me plenteous, nor the other miserable. I heard also another, for which I have learned in whatever state I am, therefore to be content. I know how to abound, and how to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ that strengtheneth me. Behold the soldier of the heavenly camp, not the dust which we are. But remember, Lord, that we are dust, and that of dust thou hast made man, and he was lost and is found. Nor could he of himself do this, because he whom I so loved, saying this through the inbreathing of thy inspiration, was of the same dust. I can do all things, saith he, through him that strengtheneth me. Strengthen me, that I can. Give what thou enjoinest, and enjoin what thou wilt. He confesses to have received, and when he glorieth in the Lord he glorieth. Another have I heard begging that he might receive. Take from me, saith he, the desires of the belly, whence it appeareth, O my holy God, that thou givest, when that is done which thou commandest to be done. Thou hast taught me, good Father, that to the pure all things are pure, but that it is evil unto the man that eateth with offence, and that every creature of thine is good, and nothing to be refused, which is received with thanksgiving, and that meat commendeth us not to God, and that no man should judge us in meat or drink, and that he which eateth, let him not despise him that eateth not, and let not him that eateth not judge him that eateth. These things have I learned, thanks be to Thee, praise to Thee, my God, my Master, knocking at my ears, enlightening my heart. Deliver me out of all temptation. I fear not uncleanness of meat, but the uncleanness of lusting. I know that Noah was permitted to eat all kinds of flesh, that was good for food, that Elijah was fed with flesh, that John, endued with an admirable abstinence, was not polluted by feeding on living creatures, locusts. I know also that Esau was deceived by lusting for lentils, that David blamed himself for desiring a draught of water, and that our king was tempted, not concerning flesh, but bread. And therefore the people in the wilderness also deserve to be reproved, not for desiring flesh, but because in their desire for food they murmured against the Lord. Placed then amid these temptations, I strive daily against concupiscence in eating and drinking. For it is not of such nature that I can settle on cutting it off once for all, and never touching it afterward, as I could of concubinage. The bridle of the throat then is to be held attempered between slackness and stiffness. And who is he, O Lord, who is not somewhat transported beyond the limits of necessity? Whoever he is a great one. Let him make thy name great. But I am not such, for I am a sinful man. Yet do I too magnify thy name, and he maketh intercession to thee for my sins, who hath overcome the world, numbering me among the weak members of his body, because thine eyes have seen that of him which is imperfect, and in thy book shall all be written. Chapter 32. With all the allurements and smells I am not much concerned. When absent I do not miss them, when present I do not refuse them, yet ever ready to be without them. So I seem to myself, perchance I am deceived. For that also is mournful darkness, whereby my abilities within me are hidden from me, so that my mind making inquiry into herself by her own powers ventures not readily to believe herself, because even what is in it is mostly hidden, unless experience reveal it. And no one ought to be secure in that life, the whole whereof is called a trial, that he who hath been capable of worse to be made better, may not likewise of better be made worse. Our only hope, our confidence, only assured promise, is thy mercy. Chapter 33. The delights of the ear had more firmly entangled and subdued me, but thou didst loosen and free me. Now, in those melodies which thy words breathe soul into, when sung with a sweet and attuned voice, I do a little repose, yet not so as to be held thereby, but that I can disengage myself when I will. But with the words which are their life, and whereby they find admission into me, themselves seek in my affections a place of some estimation, and I can scarcely assign them one suitable. For at one time I seemed to myself to give them more honour than is seemly, feeling our minds to be more holily and fervently raised unto a flame of devotion, by the holy words themselves when thus sung, than when not. And that the several affections of our spirit, by a sweet variety, have their own proper measures in the voice and singing, by some hidden correspondence wherewith they are stirred up. But this contentment of the flesh, to which the soul must not be given over to be enervated, doth oft beguile me, the sense not so waiting upon reason, as patiently to follow her. But having been admitted merely for her sake, it strives even to run before her and lead her. Thus in these things I unawares sin, but afterwards am aware of it. At other times, shunning over anxiously this very deception, I err in too great strictness, and sometimes to that degree, as to wish the whole melody of sweet music which is used to David's Psalter banished from my ears, and the churches too, and that mode seems to me safer, which I remember to have been often told me of Athanasius, Bishop of Alexandria, who made the reader of the psalm utter it with so slight inflection of voice that it was nearer speaking than singing. Yet again, when I remember the tears I shed at the psalmody of thy church in the beginning of my recovered faith, and how at this time I am moved, not with the singing, but with the things sung, when they are sung with a clear voice and modulation most suitable, I acknowledge the great use of this institution. Thus I fluctuate between peril of pleasure and approved wholesomeness, inclined the rather, though not as pronouncing an irrevocable opinion, to approve of the usage of singing in the church, so that by the delight of the ears the weaker minds may rise to the feeling of devotion. Yet when it befalls me to be more moved with the voice than the words sung, I confess to have sinned penally, and then had rather not hear music. See now my state, weep with me, and weep for me, ye who so regulate your feelings within, as that good action ensues. For you who do not act, these things touch not you. But thou, O Lord my God, hearken, behold and see, and have mercy and heal me, thou, in whose presence I have become a problem to myself, and that is my infirmity. Chapter 34. There remains the pleasure of these eyes of my flesh, on which to make my confessions in the hearing of the ears of thy temple, those brotherly and devout ears, and so to conclude the temptations of the lust of the flesh, which yet assail me, groaning earnestly and desiring to be clothed upon with my house from heaven. The eyes love fair and varied forms, and bright and soft colours. Let not these occupy my soul. Let God rather occupy it, who made these things, very good indeed, yet is he my good, and not they. And these affect me, waking, the whole day, nor is any rest given me from them, as there is from musical, sometimes, in silence, from all voices. For this queen of colours, the light, bathing all which we behold, wherever I am through the day, gliding by me in varied forms, soothes me when engaged on other things, and not observing it. And so strongly doth it entwine itself, that if it be suddenly withdrawn, it is with longing sought for, and if absent long, saddeneth the mind. O thou light, which Tobias saw, when, these eyes closed, he taught his son the way of life, and himself went before with the feet of charity, never swerving. Or which Isaac saw, when his fleshly eyes being heavy and closed by old age, it was vouchsafed him, not knowingly to bless his sons, but by blessing to know them. Or when Jacob saw, when he also, blind through great age, with illumined heart, in the persons of his sons shed light on the different races of the future people, in them foresignified, and laid his hands mystically crossed upon his grandchildren by Joseph, not as their father by his outward eye corrected them, but as himself inwardly discerned. This is the light, it is one, and all are one, who see and love it. But that corporeal light whereof I spake, it seasoneth the life of this world for her blind lovers, with an enticing and dangerous sweetness. But they who know how to praise thee for it, O all-creating Lord, take it up in thy hymns, and are not taken up with it in their sleep. Such would I be. These seductions of the eyes I resist, lest my feet wherewith I walk upon thy way be ensnared. And I lift up mine invisible eyes to thee, that thou wouldst pluck my feet out of the snare. Thou dost ever and anon pluck them out, for they are ensnared. Thou ceasest not to pluck them out, while I often entangle myself in the snares on all sides laid, because thou that keepest Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. what innumerable toys, made by divers arts and manufacturers, in our apparel, shoes, utensils, and all sorts of works, in pictures also and divers images, and these far exceeding all necessary and moderate use, and all pious meaning, have men added to tempt their own eyes withal, outwardly following what themselves make, inwardly forsaking him by whom themselves were made, and destroying that which themselves have been made. But I, my God, and my glory, do hence also sing a hymn to thee, and do consecrate praise to him who consecrateth me, because those beautiful patterns which through men's souls are conveyed into their cunning hands, come from that beauty which is above our souls, which my soul day and night sigheth after. But the framers and followers of the outward beauties derive thence the rule of judging of them, but not of using them. And he is there, though they perceive him not, so that they might not wander, but keep their strength for thee, and not scattered abroad upon pleasurable weariness. And I, though I speak and see this, entangle my steps with these outward beauties. But thou pluckest me out, O Lord, thou pluckest me out, because thy loving kindness is before my eyes. For I am taken miserably, and thou pluckest me out mercifully, sometimes not perceiving it, when I had but lightly lighted upon them, otherwhiles with pain, because I had stuck fast in them. Chapter 35. To this is added another form of temptation more manifoldly dangerous. For besides that concupiscence of the flesh which consisteth in the delight of all senses and pleasures, wherein its slaves, who go far from thee, waste and perish, the soul hath, through the same senses of the body, a certain vain and curious desire, veiled under the title of knowledge and learning, not of delighting in the flesh, but of making experiments through the flesh. The seat whereof being in the appetite of knowledge, and sight being the sense chiefly used for attaining knowledge, it is in divine language called the lust of the eyes. For to see belongeth properly to the eyes, yet we use this word of the other senses also, when we employ them in seeking knowledge. For we do not say, Hark how it flashes, or smell how it glows, or taste how it shines, or feel how it gleams. For all these are said to be seen. And yet we say not only, See how it shineth, which the eyes alone can perceive, but also, See how it soundeth, and see how it smelleth, see how it tasteth, see how hard it is. And so the general experience of the senses, as was said, is called the lust of the eyes, because the office of seeing, wherein the eyes hold the prerogative, the other senses by way of similitude take to themselves, when they make search after any knowledge. But by this may more evidently be discerned, wherein pleasure and wherein curiosity is the object of the senses. For pleasure seeketh objects beautiful, melodious, fragrant, savoury, soft, but curiosity, for trial's sake, the contrary as well, not for the sake of suffering annoyance, but out of the lust of making trial and knowing them. For what pleasure hath it to see in a mangled carcass what will make you shudder? And yet if it be lying near, they flock thither, to be made sad, and to turn pale. Even in sleep they are afraid to see it, as if when awake any one forced them to see it, or any report of its beauty drew them thither. Thus also in the other senses, which it were long to go through. From this disease of curiosity are all those strange sights exhibited in the theatre. Hence men go on to search out the hidden powers of nature, which is besides our end, which to know profits not, and wherein men desire nothing but to know. Hence also, if with that same end of perverted knowledge magical arts be inquired by. Hence also in religion itself is God tempted, when signs and wonders are demanded of him, not desired for any good end, but merely to make trial of. In this so vast wilderness, full of snares and dangers, behold many of them I have cut off, and thrust out of my heart, as thou hast given me, O God of my salvation. And yet, when dare I say, since so many things of this kind buzz on all sides about our daily life, when dare I say that nothing of this sort engages my attention, or causes in me any idle interest? True, the theatres do not now carry me away, nor care I to know the courses of the stars, nor did my soul ever consult ghosts departed. All sacrilegious mysteries I detest. From Thee, O Lord my God, to whom I owe humble and single-hearted service, by what artifices and suggestions doth the enemy deal with me to desire some sign? But I beseech Thee by our King, and by our pure and holy country, Jerusalem, that as any consenting thereto is far from me, so may it be even further and further. But when I pray to Thee for the salvation of any, my end and intention is far different. Thou givest and wilt give me to follow Thee willingly, doing what Thou wilt. Notwithstanding, in how many most petty and contemptible things is our curiosity daily tempted, and how often we give way, who can recount? How often do we begin, as if we were tolerating people telling vain stories, lest we offend the weak, then by degrees we take interest therein. I go not now to the circus to see a dog coursing a hare, but in the field if passing, that coursing peradventure will distract me even from some weighty thought, and draw me after it. Not that I turn aside the body of my beast, but yet still inclined my mind thither. And unless Thou, having made me see my infirmity, didst speedily admonish me either through the sight itself, by some contemplation to rise towards Thee, or altogether to despise and pass it by, I dully stand fixed therein. What, when sitting at home, a lizard catching flies, or a spider entangling them rushing into her nets, oftentimes takes my attention? Is the thing different, because they are but small creatures? I go on from them to praise Thee, the wonderful Creator and Orderer of all, but this does not first draw my attention. It is one thing to rise quickly, another not to fall. And of such things is my life full, and my one hope is Thy wonderful great mercy. For when our heart becomes the receptacle of such things, and is overcharged with throngs of this abundant vanity, then are our prayers also thereby often interrupted and distracted. And whilst in Thy presence we direct the voice of our heart to Thine ears, this so great concern is broken off by the rushing in of I know not what idle thoughts. Shall we then account this also among things of slight concernment? Or shall aught bring us back to hope, save Thy complete mercy, since Thou hast begun to change us? End of Book 10, Chapter 35.